Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Myself. I'm your host, Rain, and I'm really jumping into this episode. I just dropped this thing on my subscription on Instagram, and it was, when did we forget to actually just have fun? When we let our fun and when we let our joy and when we let our excitement lead us, you can't actually go wrong. I want to do a little preface on that because, yes, we can get so heavy in our muck, in our healing, in our businesses now, down in the trenches at school holidays, and I'm just trying to survive, and the petrol and the scarcity, etc., right? Yes, all valid. We also have a choice to go, you know what, I'm going to work today, but I'm going to really concentrate on the things about my work that I love and that excite me. You know what? I got to cook another freaking dinner for my family, but I'm going to concentrate on the thing that really excites me about anything to do with the dinner. I don't care whether it's like put some music on while you make dinner. I don't care if it's like, you're so passionate about ingredients. You might hate the cooking, but you love the ingredients. Like, find something that you can be enjoy and passionate and elevate your mood, elevate your essence, elevate your bright vibration. Not only does this become infectious to the people around you, but this is actually the way that you manifest money. You manifest opportunities. You manifest connections. We are meant to lead our lives from a place of joy and excitability and passion. That is where we lead. And I just wanted to pop that in as a massive reminder, because I see so many people head down, bum up, hustle, go. But find your joy every single day. It doesn't matter how minimal it is. Find your joy. Now, this episode is brought to you by absolutely no one. And I'm actually sipping on my coffee, but I've put a spoon of Kissed Earth hot chocolate blend in there because I really felt like something chocolatey, and I cannot find one chocolate thing in this house. The Easter Bunny did not come to this house. It's been a really interesting Easter break for me. Probably for the first time ever, I didn't buy one chocolate egg. I didn't leave a bunny on the kids' bed simply because they weren't here. And I did get a call from Autumn on a beautiful boat with her girlfriend in Rottnest on Sunday. She's like, "Did the Easter Bunny come?" I was like, "Oh my God. You can't have it both ways, girls." Anyway, so yes, I just had a chocolate craving, so I'm sipping on chocolate. But I digress. I also opened up this podcast episode thinking I am ready to upgrade my standards and I am ready to take my podcasting and my interviews to the next level, which brings me to invite anyone who's listening. I will start looking for some partners. The partners will allow me to align with brands and people that compatible, that are complementary and authentic to the Myself brand. But it also means that I can maybe do a bit more, get a bit bigger, because there is only so much you can do in your home, which I love and I'm building, and I'm so grateful for you guys. But I'm getting such incredible feedback. The listeners are there. You guys are loving the content. So I thought, why not take this and be of service to more people than we possibly can? So if you're listening to this and you're a brand that aligns, or you know someone who is looking to partner with a podcast, then send them my way because applications are open. Oh, my applications. Who do I think I am? Okay. I really want to get into this episode because it's a really, really important one. Most women that I have been working with and having comments in my DMs are not struggling because they don't know what to do, right? They're struggling because they haven't found the internal foundation to actually hold what they want. And this is the big kicker, ladies and gentlemen, because when we sit in our procrastination, when we sit in our, circling the same thoughts, whether we're sitting in, I'm not going to launch on social media just yet because I need to figure out what my boundaries are and I need to figure out clarity, exactly what my message is. When we sit in these arguments with our own mind over and over again, and this could be in your relationship, do I say anything? Don't I say anything? Do I bring that up? Do I not bring that up? Will that rock the boat? When we sit in this struggle of taking action, it's not because your intuition isn't there giving you the guidance on what you want to do. It is there. So if you are resonating with any of this, if you're like, where do I take action? I'm sick of procrastinating. I know I'm put on this earth for more. I want to find my purpose. This episode's for you, because what I'm going to teach you is the reason why you circle, the reason why you're inconsistent, and how to actually build a safe, strong foundation so that you can start going bigger, so that you can start putting yourself out there, so that you can start having those conversations. But it all comes back to you. So this is really, really powerful. This is really empowering. This is not outsourcing our worth. This is where it starts with you. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Pursuit of Myself, the podcast. Here we take ownership of our healing. We rewrite the rules, we turn knowledge into wisdom, and we lead our lives with intention. I'm your host, Rain, and it's my mission to empower you to get back into the driver's seat of your life. So if you are struggling to actually take the next move, if you start and stop, if you overthink everything, if you collapse when things get really hard, if you find that you lose momentum the second something that feels uncomfortable, then I'm telling you now, you're not struggling because you don't know what to do. You're not struggling because you're not smart or you're not capable. You are struggling because you don't have the internal foundation yet to hold the thing that you want. You don't have that internal foundation that says, I'm going to be okay if I get what I want, or I'm going to be okay if they don't like it. Everything we do is about this internal system that signals off whether we are safe or not to take action. And when we listen to our internal system, we make it mean that, oh, I'm inconsistent. I lack discipline. I'm not confident. I just need to try harder. But I'm telling you now, that is not the problem. We can blame and gaslight ourselves all we want if that's what's going to make us feel better. But what I'm telling you is happening is that your strong foundation, your foundation underneath is not stable yet. It doesn't feel safe. And when your foundation isn't stable, everything feels harder than it should. Everything feels confusing. Everything feels frustrating. And an unshakable foundation isn't built from strategy. It is built from who you are when things aren't working. So how do you know that you have an unstable foundation? So if you resonated with anything that I just said then, if you resonated with what the confusion and the circling and the second guessing and the I'll just leave it till later, if you resonate with that, this is important for you to understand that we can align with those things as quote unquote normal, or we can align with those things as, okay, I feel them and I see them, but it's not putting me in the direction that I want to go. So here's how you know. If you feel good when things are working and then you spiral when they're not. If you rely on motivation, if you have to wait for that before you take action, if you break your word to yourself constantly, that is a big one. If you look outside yourself for validation before making decisions, if you avoid discomfort instead of leading yourself through it, these are signs that your foundation is not stable. It's not a timing problem. It's not a I need a better strategy problem. This is a foundation problem. Now, everything that we work on, everything that we talk about comes back to this, because your soul, how you were born, that is covered up by your emotional injuries, right? We get injured, we get traumatized, we get hurt. Someone says something to us. We become conditioned to go, when I am shy, then we protect the shyness by not speaking up, and the not speaking up becomes the behavior. So all these covering up mechanisms that we go from soul to behavior is where we need to look, because this is where your foundation is. Your foundation is actually built on old wounds. It's built on fears of rejection or abandonment. Your foundation is built on people pleasing, on avoidance. So no matter what you build on top of it, no matter what you build on top of those emotional injuries, it won't actually hold. It won't give you that true trust in yourself that you can move forward and that you'll be fine. What your nervous system's telling you is that you remember when these things happen and we weren't fine. That's the emotional wound. So this is how we have to behave in order to avoid that emotional wound. I actually had a call with my academy group this morning, and one of the ladies was talking about needing clarity before she showed up on her social media. And she was saying about, how do you show up on social media knowing what you should and shouldn't be saying? Like, how do you avoid the judgment and the criticism so that you can stay resilient? And it was a really interesting way to put it. And this speaks directly into what I'm talking to today. when we show up in a certain way so that we don't get judged or criticized, we are showing up as the wounded version of ourselves. We are saying that I don't trust if I show up authentically that I'm going to be safe, because that happened to me last time. So I'm going to protect myself and show up this way. And then she said, so to navigate resilience or to stay resilient, but the resilience is actually built in the taking action with your authenticity. You need to build the trust and evidence that as you show up authentically, you are going to be okay. We don't avoid conflict so that we stay resilient. We're actually avoiding the conflict to avoid those feelings of the wound that imprinted on us however long ago. So when it comes to, I'm just saying social media because we had this conversation today. When it comes to showing up on social media, if you are showing up from a wound, worried about what people will say or think or judge, then you are showing up as a version of you that is not authentic. You're showing up diluted so that you don't attract any sort of possible judgment or any sort of possible backlash. And this could be from a lot of wounds. I don't need to go into all the wounds that could create this. But then what the ego does is it says, okay, well, to avoid that, we're going to show up this way. We're going to go around. But the hard truth of the matter is that when you are growing a business, when you are building a beautiful connection with your partner and you want to deepen that connection, it all comes down to how solid your foundation is, how much you know who you are, how discerning you are in your choices, and how much you trust the fact that if things go not the way that we want, we're actually going to be okay. We might hurt, we might lose a friend, but you know what? We are coming from authenticity. And when we come from authenticity, we are not abandoning who we are to make sure that other people are happy. And this is the evidence that we must build over and over again so that we are showing up as who we are, so that people can say, I have that true connection. I hear you. I see you. Thank you. And this strongly, strongly, strongly believe this is our duty as humans, is to investigate and excavate what our soul essence is so that that is what's leading us. We're not led by the wound. We're not led by the abandonment. We're not led by the people pleasing because our ego says anything else is unsafe. We do the excavating and investigating so that we are leading from that authentic place so that we can create those beautiful, true connections through confident conversations and being inspirational and by being of service. That's what we want to see. Now, if you're sitting here going, okay, this is hard. I'm hearing and seeing you in this. This is like a one step at a time thing because you don't need a new version of who you are. You actually just need the version of you who trusts herself, who holds her word, who leads herself even when it's really, really hard, does it anyway. Because that sort of discipline, that is where you start growing. Now, if you have the discipline without the identity, without the authenticity piece, then again, you are leading from the wound and that doesn't last. It doesn't attract beautiful connections in relationships. It doesn't attract incredible clients. Okay. So let me break it down for you, the framework that I use when it comes to working with my clients and how to build an unshakable foundation so that you feel safe to grow and evolve, because I truly believe that it is everyone's birthright to do that. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing that I would love you to commit to is your self-awareness, because you cannot change what you can't see. And most of you are living in patterns that you don't even realize are repeating. Most of you are living in patterns of avoidance, of overthinking and calling it something else. You are living in the people pleasing and calling it like, I'm just kind. Most of you are living in these patterns that do not serve you, but that your ego has convinced you that this is a safe thing that you need to stay in. And when we stay in it long enough, it becomes part of who we are. This is just who I am. And then when we lead from that place, there's no opportunity for change. But you'll be capping your income. You'll be capping your visibility. You'll be capping the depth of your relationship. You'll be capping your creativity if you are living from patterns. So number one, get radically honest with yourself about how you're showing up and see if you can see a pattern or see if you can see a way that you identify yourself, whether you're like, you know me, I'm just a people pleaser, whatever these things that you say, your foundation starts with actually being aware of it. What am I actually doing? What pattern have I seemed to have committed to that is no longer serving me? And when I say no longer serving me, I don't want to go into that spiritual jargon and, what's no longer, but the no longer serving me, what I mean by that is that when we have an emotional wound, we create the pattern. So in those moments, it feels like it is serving you. It is created to protect you. It's created to protect you from experiencing that wound again, even if it's not serving you. So when we can see it as, oh, thank you, I see that you were there to protect me. That's why I became a people pleaser, because I was so uncomfortable that time, that X, Y, and Z. We can then actually do things to change that. So what am I actually doing now? Thank you for serving me then. I'm trying to grow my business. I need to be really authentic about how I show up. That pattern is no longer serving me. But first, it comes with awareness. The next thing that comes is creating an emotional safety. So your nervous system, and I've spoken to this in so many podcast episodes and all over my Instagram and on my email list, and, the nervous system. But the way I want to explain it in this regard is that your nervous system is the thing that's setting your ceiling. It is the thing that's telling you what's safe and what's not safe. It's protecting you and your wound. So if that is your ceiling, right, you will not hold a life that your body doesn't feel safe in, because every time it starts to not feel safe and the warning signals go off in your nervous system, you shut down. We maybe make different stories about why we can't. We make different excuses about why we can't. We say, I can't show up like that because what if they don't accept me? You can actually hear yourself telling your stories in your head over and over again. Sometimes it might just be dressed up in different clothes, but it will be the same nervous system response. Stop, danger. So what happens when we start wanting a bigger life, when we start wanting deeper connections, you try to build the bigger life on top of a nervous system that still is in survival mode. The nervous system is still like, Remember that time that you got dumped on your ass? Yeah, well, we don't want that to happen again. We're just going to not put the dating thing up. We're going to say no to blind dates because your nervous system is like unsafe. Or what we'll also do is it will attract the same type of man. So you create that experience over and over again until you're ready to say no. The nervous system is a really interesting powerhouse, and it is driving us. And when we are in survival mode, we collapse over and over again. Now, this goes for the same ceiling in business with money. Your emotional safety is how much income do I feel safe having? And that is where your nervous system will sit. And if we don't investigate the identity or the belief systems underneath that, then we're just going to hit our ceiling over and over and over again. I know it sounds like, oh, but what about more money? Of course I want more money. But if your nervous system says, oh no, because remember you're judging those people with all that money and you said that they were wankers, you don't want to be called a wanker. So I'm just going to set my ceiling of income here, right? And I actually have a woman in my group, and she came because she's like made so much money last year and then she lost it all. So that's her pattern, makes so much, spends it. It's like, and not spending because she's like, on herself and being frivolous. She's like, gets bills and things happen. Things knock her off her perch. So her nervous system feels safe in that hustle and the adrenaline's going and we're working and we're making that money, and then we've got it and she relaxes and the nervous system's like, oh, I don't know what this is like to relax. Well, let's lose it so we can get you back into hustle mode again. Let's go. And then what happens? Bang, cycle continues. The best thing you can do is start 1, self-awareness, 2, understanding your nervous system, because the nervous system holds the safety. That is the foundation. That is where the pattern lies. And this is where we need to build. So once we are working with the nervous system, we have to build self-trust. Now, self-trust is such an interesting thing, because I think we sit there and we wait for this like confidence thing to whack us over the head and say, oh, I'm confident now, yay. But what's actually happening is we are saying things like, oh, I'll start Monday. I'll show up tomorrow when I have more money. I'm going all in and then I don't. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week and you go once. This is how we build self-trust. Self-trust isn't in those big, big moments. Self-trust is in the micro moments where you make promises to yourself the way that you would keep them when you are keeping promises to other people. Isn't that fun? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we keep our promises to other people, but we don't keep them to ourselves. And then it doesn't work anyway because we're not consistent and we're not disciplined. We leak our power when we don't keep our promise to ourselves. And every single time you break your word, you weaken the foundation that you're building on. And when we weaken our foundation, everything gets harder. So to build self-trust is about creating the evidence that when you keep your word to yourself, that you are actually going to do the thing that you say you're going to do. And this is one of the biggest things that you can master, doing the thing you say you're going to do. I have so many clients come to me, and even in my programs, and they say they're going to do something, and then a week later they show up to the next call and they haven't done it yet. And that is breaking your word to yourself in micro moments. Yes, there are reasons and excuses, and we have kids, and I had a sick kid, and it's been Easter and I've gone away, etc., etc., etc. But then my question is, do you really want that you're building? Do you really want it? Because one of the biggest things that separate the people that are actually doing the thing and the ones that aren't are the ones that have a deep self-trust with themselves and keeping their word to themselves. Every single time you break your word, you're weakening the foundation that you're building upon. And remember, we are trying to create a foundation where we are building on strong, solid soil that has been fertilized and hydrated and loved on. That is the seed that we want to plant our roots in. That is the seed that we want to grow out of. We don't want to try and grow out of sand. Sand is the people-pleasing, the overworking, the overdoing, the seeking validation. When we build on that, we become shakeable, easily fall over. We want to create our life built on a strong, safe foundation, an unshakable one. And the unshakable woman isn't the one who avoids herself. Now we need to actually step into emotional mastery, because the unshakable woman is the one who does not avoid her hard feelings, does not avoid the hard thing to do. Because in the hard thing is, again, that is where you build self-trust. Now, this woman who is creating, and I want you to actually take a moment to go, okay, so if I was unshakable, how would I be showing up differently? How would I be leading my life differently? What is making me uncomfortable that if I was unshakable, I'd just do it anyway? Because this is how we start reflecting and moving forward. The emotional mastery woman who is creating this unshakable foundation, she's the one who can sit in uncertainty. She's the one who can sit in that, oh my God, this is scary. She's the one that can see the pressure and still move, because she is not ruled by how she feels. Emotional mastery does not mean that we are robots. What emotional mastery means is that we have the ability to stop avoiding discomfort, feel the discomfort, and actually move anyway. And this is the big thing about the vulnerability. And I spoke last week about self-care, and I spoke last week about how we are using self-care to cover up and keep us in our regulated loop, but it also is keeping us avoiding things that we actually are feeling. It's avoiding us actually taking big steps and big leaps in our life, because we feel the discomfort, we go back to our regulation, we get on with our lives. Now, being dysregulated is uncomfortable, but do you know that you can actually be regulated and uncomfortable and in fear? It's just about not avoiding how you're feeling and moving anyway. And that is the big thing that I see. When you are uncomfortable, regulate and go back to your life, nothing is changing. You are doing the same thing over and over again. Nothing is changing. But if you can feel the discomfort, see it, meet it, and still move, then you are actually taking action and making change in your life so that you don't sit in the same loop over and over again. So stop avoiding your discomfort by regulating yourself and then going back to the same reality over and over again where nothing changes until you get dysregulated again. Create some emotional mastery and don't be ruled by how you feel. Be ruled by your discomfort and do it anyway. Because that is where self-leadership comes in. When you are acting, regardless of what mood you're in, regardless of the economy, regardless of what's going on regardless, right? Self-leadership says, I am responsible for me. I am responsible for my actions. I'm responsible for moving forward in life. Even if we are feeling off, it's like on a Tuesday morning at 9:00, if we said we were going to do 2 hours of work and instead we're feeling like in a shit mood, so we go and watch Netflix for 2 hours, I can guarantee you that is not self-leadership. And this is the shift that we need. When you are in self-leadership, you stop asking, do I feel like it? And you start deciding, who am I being today? Because leadership isn't emotional, it's absolutely intentional. Self-leadership is something that you wake up and think, how am I going to lead myself today? What are my goals? Where am I moving towards? It is intentional. It's a choice. It becomes the way that we move, not being reactive to the things that are going on in our life. It means moving in spite of not feeling like it, moving in spite of the economy, moving in spite of something else that, oh God, I've just got another example. What is it? Moving in spite of feeling tired. Now, again, I'm going to go back to self-regulation because a lot of it is like, yes, rest, be tired when you rest, honor your body. Yes, get out of hustle, overwhelmed, burnt out. All of this is true. But I see too many people leaning on it as an excuse to not take action. Too many people leaning on wanting the business, but they don't want to work on the Friday yet. And they're just starting. Too many people leaning on the fact that, they want these big lives, or they want to grow their client list, or they want to make more money, but they want to go to the beach at 9:00 for an hour as well. There is a world we can have it both, but there are also seasons. And when we are in self-leadership towards the thing that we want, we are putting in the work. We are leading regardless of whether we feel like it or not. And that is the hard truth, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot of people aren't saying, especially on Instagram. I see it all the time. Work 3-hour days, work a 5-hour week, have this off, have all your travel. But no one's saying, you know what, I fucking worked 6-7 years of my life to get to me to where I am today so that I can have a Friday afternoon off. I get up at 5:00 to go to the gym just so I can be sitting at my desk by 7:30 and have a full day of work. Like, this is the hard truth behind leading yourself towards the life and leading yourself to be the woman that has that life. So this comes into the next phase is, who are you? Are you the woman that can hold that life? Or are we the woman that makes the excuses and the reasons as to why you can't? Do you rise every single day towards your goals, or do you fall back to the patterning and the conditioning that's been running the show for so long? And when it comes to building the foundation, if you are setting up your identity as this woman who has the money, the business, the partner, the travel, the parent, all these things, but you haven't looked underneath yet, you haven't looked what your foundation is, that you don't have that solid foundation, you will fall over every single time. It will feel too hard. You will get burnt out. You will feel overwhelmed. You will feel like, I've got too much on my plate, I can't do any more. Right? We must build that solid foundation so that you can empty your bucket, build something solid, and lead from that place so that you rise to the identity and the goals. And then what happens is you become unshakable. You become that woman. You don't question her. You don't abandon her because you are her. So the real question is, who do I need to become to hold the life that I say that I want? And in that question is also, what do I need to be aware of? What do I need to let go of? What patterns are running the show so that I can heal them and then hold the life that I say that I want? We cannot skip that step. And this is so much of the deep work that I do with my clients, because so often people come saying they want more strategy. They want, bigger businesses. They want clarity. They want deeper connection in their relationship. But what's actually happening is that if we don't address why there is that mistrust in themselves, why you avoid hard decisions, why you're not showing up on social media, why you identify as hating conflict, why you collapse under pressure, right? Why you only work well in hustle mode. That is the questions. Because the moment we stabilize and answer those questions, those things, those solid wounds, the emotional wounds that are on top of the soul, when we address that, that's when things shift. Not because someone's life has changed overnight, but because they've done the work to actually investigate who and what is underneath that is forming the way that I lead and forming the way that I make decisions and choose. So to become unshakable actually means that you don't fall apart when things don't go to plan, that you don't abandon yourself when it gets uncomfortable, that you don't need constant validation to keep going, because you are becoming the woman who holds those high standards, the ones and the identity that you say that you want or that you actually are, but you've just covered her up with the wounds. And no matter what's happening externally, you get to hold her and you get to lead with her, not with the emotional wounds, but with the identity that you know you are, that can hold the things that you want. So you don't actually need to keep rebuilding your life every time something goes wrong. Not everything needs to be a start over. Not everything needs to be investigated. You need to build something internally that doesn't collapse. You need to build something strong that doesn't collapse. This is the strong foundation that will help you do that. And it is the work that we actually do inside the Myself Academy. We work deeply in this part because I have seen it for years and over again, and I know it, that this deep foundation is the thing that's going to hold your business and your relationships to the highest of standards that I know that you deeply desire. Inside the Academy, we don't just change your habits, we change the foundation that you are living from. Because when your foundation is solid, you stop second guessing, you stop starting over, you stop actually finding out why I'm collapsing all the time, but you start finally building something on that strong foundation that will last. And that not only it will last, it's so deeply empowering and satisfying when you do. You can imagine when you build from a strong foundation and it's so aligned and authentic, just hold that feeling in your heart. And then think, when I'm building on something that is full of people pleasing and second guessing myself and self-sabotage, you're constantly seeking validation. It doesn't feel good. Feel that in your heart. So if your life does keep falling apart, or you feel like you're spinning your wheels in the same direction over and over again, this is not your effort, it is your foundation. And that's exactly what we get to change so that you can have and hold the life that you say that you desperately and deeply desire. I'll see you next week.